Virtual meetings promise increased efficiencies, increased collaboration, and reduced costs. Yet for many, that hasn't happened. Virtual meetings instead have become a quagmire where decisions are not made, meetings struggle to get traction, and people don't engage. In this video, I will share with you 7 tips that will help you unlock the potential of virtual meetings and reduce your costs, increase your collaboration across your teams and with your clients, and get the efficiencies that you're chasing. The first tip with virtual meetings is to know whether you're holding a virtual meeting or a virtual broadcast. This is an important differentiation. If you want people to actively engage and participate in the discussion during your meeting, then you need to hold an online meeting. However, if you are looking to do a town hall style broadcast where you want to communicate information with limited interactions, in other words, just maybe questions and answers during the course of the session or even at the very end, then you want to hold a webinar. This is an important distinction because if you try and hold a broadcast style session as an online meeting, people will be talking over one another. Your ability as a host to communicate the information will be severely impeded and people will get frustrated. So make sure, firstly, understand whether or not you are holding an online meeting or whether you're holding an online broadcast, and set your event up accordingly. If it involves discussion and interaction, it's an online meeting. If it's a broadcast of information with maybe limited questions and limited interaction, then it is a webinar or an online broadcast. The second tip to help you get more effective virtual meetings is to make sure that everyone can see and hear you and the presentation. So when you have set up your online meeting or online webinar, whatever event you have chosen, ensure that people firstly can get access to it. And then ensure that you have set up so that you are screen sharing, sharing your video, and people can interact according to how you want them to appropriately. Now, ideally, you do this in 2 steps. Firstly, you do it before the event. Many of the proper webinar and online meeting tools have the ability to give participants the opportunity to test their connectivity, test that they can get into the online meeting room. Make sure you send that out. This is especially important if you are using an online meeting with clients. But even with your internal teams, make sure that everyone knows how to access the event. You also want to make sure then at the start of your event, before you push into the content, that everyone can see your screen. If you're sharing your screen, they can see your video, and importantly, they can hear you. Utilize all of the tools that are available in the online meeting tool that you're using, whether it's WebEx, GoToWebinar, Zoom meetings, whatever you're choosing. Make sure that everyone can access your event, see and hear what you want them to see and hear appropriately. My next tip for an effective online meeting is to know how to use the tools. All of these online meeting tools come with a myriad of features, from being able to not just share your screen and share your video. They have polling capabilities, the ability to share documents, chat boxes, Q&A boxes, and the ability to connect even your iPad or iPhone so that you can do some form of whiteboarding and diagramming. You need to be able to make sure that you know how to use these tools effectively so that you can run an effective and professional virtual meeting that gets the results that you're chasing. If you don't know how to use these tools and you are fumbling during the course of your event and your meeting, you're going to create not only frustration, you're going to chew into that valuable time where you have everyone's attention while you effectively learn the tool. That compresses your ability to get the decision and get the results that you're looking for out of your online meetings or events. So make sure that you know how to use the tools. Can you swap presenters easily? Can you share documents? Do you know how to direct people to interact with you? Can you do effective whiteboarding appropriately using the tooling? Make sure that you know how to exploit all of the capabilities and all of the features of your tools to get the most out of your virtual meeting. There are so many tools, so many capabilities within any online meeting tool that it's hard for one person to be the presenter, the meeting host, and to manage the actual tooling itself. So to switch between presenters, to ensure that the screen is showing exactly what you want it to show at any particular point in time. So my next tip for you is to don't be afraid at this point to get some help. Bring in a wingman or a wingwoman to come along and be your assistant for your virtual meeting so that they can look after the tooling. They can handle the Q&A box. They can manage that for you and let you know when there are questions to answer. They can help you switch between presenters and distribute handouts virtually to all of the attendees. So don't be afraid to get some assistance and bring in a wingman or wingwoman to sit next to you, to be a part of the virtual meeting, to help administer the tooling and make your virtual meeting a success. A big tip is to eliminate the distractions. Distractions can be background noise and they can be background images. Especially if you are looking to incorporate a video stream of yourself and your participants in your virtual meeting, you need to be aware, and your participants need to be aware of what the background is behind them. You want to make sure that you're not in some common thoroughfare where there is lots of people walking back and forth. This will create distractions. Similarly, you want to make sure you're in a quiet place so that people can hear you, and as a meeting attendee, that you are not creating a lot of distracting audio onto the meeting itself. So make sure that you ask your participants of your meeting to find an appropriate location which will eliminate distractions as much as possible. And for you as the meeting host, make sure that you have done all that you can to eliminate the distractions on a video feed point of view, from a sound point of view, even to the point where you are shutting down other applications that you're running on your computer so that you don't, for example, have an email pop up halfway through the meeting that you don't want everyone in the world to see. So make sure that you've done all that you can to eliminate potential distraction points and avoid things being shown that you don't want being communicated to a wider audience. PowerPoint has been a problem in many meetings and in many presentations. Now, this isn't a dig at PowerPoint. This is a dig at the people who use PowerPoint. And unfortunately, PowerPoint's deficiencies get magnified in a virtual meeting, because in an in-person setting, you have the presence of delivery to help try and alleviate some of the challenges that come with poor PowerPoint presentations. In a virtual setting, that ability to keep your audience's attention through your delivery is diminished significantly. So you need to be conscious when you're preparing your PowerPoint presentation for a virtual meeting, whether it's an interactive meeting or a town halls type presentation. You need to make sure that your presentation and PowerPoint is appropriate. So that means you need to ensure that you don't have any animation. Any animations look cheesy at the best of times, but it is significantly worse in a virtual meeting setting where that animation can jutter across the screen in a very slow refresh and create a very poor reflection on you and your efforts in a virtual setting. Also, make sure that your PowerPoint is not text heavy. There should not be numbers of bullet points on a screen. There should be minimal. You have to remember that in a virtual meeting, people are engaged mostly by what's on the screen. So you need to keep your screen engaged as well. So that means minimal amount of text and more images to keep people interested. If you don't, their attention will be focused elsewhere. A virtual meeting and a virtual presentation is competing with their attention for reading the news online and for doing other things. It is very easy for people to switch to do other activities when they are attending a virtual meeting. That doesn't occur as much, not impossible, but it doesn't occur as much in an in-person meeting. So make sure that you have an engaging PowerPoint. So make sure there are plenty of images. Keep text to a minimum and avoid animation completely. Coupled with my last tip is the fact that your virtual meeting delivery skills need to be really polished. What do I mean? You need to think about three things. You need to think about how you can keep your attendees interested orally, in other words with the ears, how you can keep them engaged with their eyes, and finally how you can keep their fingers engaged. This is what will keep their attention and maintain their interest and participation in your meeting. So we've spoken a little bit about PowerPoint slides and keeping them graphically pleasing. In other words, plenty of images, minimal amount of text. That is how you can keep their eyes engaged. You've also got to be moving through at a faster rate. So I'd recommend generally a ratio of 1 slide per minute. So if you want to deliver a presentation that's 45 minutes, guess what? That's 45 slides that you need to be preparing at a minimum. You then need to keep their ears engaged. So that means you've got to use your vocal skills appropriately. So have plenty of variety. Remember, you're almost a pseudo radio presenter in a virtual meeting. So keep your vocal skills varied. Use your rate, your pitch, your tone to keep your audiences engaged. You also want to be asking questions. These can be rhetorical questions, but they're enough to get your audience and your meeting attendees participating and thinking about how they might answer those questions. And finally, you want to, at different points, ask them questions and expect them to either verbally engage or potentially type in. So in other words, use their fingers to put in a response in the chat box. By keeping your audiences engaged with their ears, their eyes, and their fingers, you're going to get a much greater participation rate in your virtual meetings, and that will garner the success that you are chasing. Virtual meetings can and will be very productive. They can unlock the efficiencies, reduce the costs, and get the success that you're chasing when they are done properly. When you get your staff, when you get your clients effectively participating in a virtual meeting, the outcomes that you're chasing will happen with the reduced costs that go with virtual settings. If you want more help and assistance running virtual meetings, setting them up, and getting the best practices employed in your organization to help you work with clients and work with your staff who are maybe disparate and utilizing virtual meetings, then why not reach out to me and I will help you get those virtual meeting presentation and delivery skills set up so that you and your staff can start to exploit the benefits of meeting in a virtual setting.